What I wish I knew at 15 instead of 25? That healing isn't a solo trip, it's a family journey. Welcome to What Happens Outside of Love, a space where the masks come off, the truth gets told, and healing begins. I'm Dr. LaQuita, and I'm joined by my cousins Diontrise and Shanita. Together, we dive deep into those moments, memories, and mindsets shaped in the absence of love, and how we're finding our way back to it. This isn't just a podcast. This is a cousins production, a raw, real, and reflective journey where family, faith, pain, and progress meet. Whether you're navigating trauma, rebuilding trust, or redefining what love looks like in your life, we see you, and we're walking this journey with you. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's talk about what happens outside of love, because healing starts with the conversation. Ready to join us? Let's get started.
Well, okay, all right. Welcome to What Happens Outside of Love, a space where the masks come off, the truth gets told, and healing begins. I'm Dr. LaQuita, and I am joined by my cousins Diontrise and Shanita. Together, we dive deep into the moments, memories, and mindsets shaped in the absence of love and how we're finding our way back to it. This isn't just a podcast. This is a cousins production, a raw, real, and reflective journey where family, faith, pain, and progress meet. Whether you're navigating trauma, rebuilding trust, or redefining what love looks like in your life, we see you, and we're walking this journey with you. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's talk about what happens outside of love, because healing starts with the conversation. Hey, ladies.
Hello.
How y'all doing?
Good.
We are finally here, y'all. We have been talking about this for a long time, and we are finally here. Here we are. So I'm Dr. LaQuita, and these are my cousins. Hey, cousins.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
This is what happens outside of love. So we're going to go around and introduce ourselves. I'm going to let my cousins start. So go ahead, cousins.
Okay. I'll take.
You
go
start
first. My name is Diontrise Blake, and I'm the cousin, I guess, west side of Atlanta. We might be all from the west side, but
Yes,
definitely. Okay, this is a West Side Cousins production. I'm sorry. But yes, I'm Diontrise, and I'm going to be the busy cousin. Just got everything going on today. So, hello.
Hey, girl. Shanita.
Oh, yep. So I'm Shanita. I'm the cousin. We from the west side, from the dad, the mother side. Diontrise, you from the father side, but we still cousins on the west side. So I stick with that. So here we are. Glad to be together as a family so we can start this healing.
Yes. And I'm LaQuita. And I'm in the middle. So Diontrise is cousin on my dad's side, and Shanita again is cousin on my mama's side. Mm-hmm. And listen, we are cousins. We are related. We not only are we related by blood, we are also related by situations, circumstances, by pain, by progress, by victory. We are related by faith. We are all faith-based people. We love the Lord who heard our cry, who has carried us through. And we got drama in our families. We're used to it. But this is not about that. This is not that type of podcast. This is not a drama podcast where we venting drama. This is a healing space. And we're talking about what happens outside of love. So I want to kind of talk about that today, and just kind of have a dialogue and have a conversation about some things that happens outside of love. And what we mean by that is what happens when one does not feel loved, or one has not received love. You can tell. I had this whole conversation in Bible study the other day where it was the question was, would you prefer there was a husband there were two couples, a husband and wife and two couples. And one of the couples, the husband was very attentive, very loving, very caring, took care of his wife, took care of his household, but he never told his wife he loved her. She never heard him say that, but he showed it. Then there was the other one where he told his wife that he loved her all the time, but he was nasty. He didn't take care of home. He was abusive to her. So which one do you prefer? I was like, wow, that's loaded, right? Do you want to feel it and it not be it be true and not say it, or do you want it said and then it's not shown? It looks something different. It looks like this is not love. So what happens outside of love? So let's dive into that conversation. What happens outside of love? So cousins, listen, and for our listeners, if you're listening in, if you're tuning in, whether you're tuning in live or whether you are gonna catch it later, feel free to ask us questions, or if you have something to share, hey, you can do that here. We're just having the conversation, because healing starts with what? A conversation. So go ahead. Anybody can step in.
Well, I'm gonna jump in on that. Most people would say they want a mix of both, but I would say I want it all like it's supposed to be. Because it's like what you said. My grandma used to say, and excuse my French, you want a man with a good Peter that treat you like crap, or a man with bad Peter that treat you like a queen. So and when you said that, I just heard my grandma all over again. I was like, no, I want it how it's supposed to be.
Okay, I want you to tell me that you love me and show me
that
you love me.
Show
I
me.
know. I know.
Show me the money.
I know. Okay. And that's how it is with families. I remember growing up, I never heard my mama say the words, I love you. I didn't hear that growing up. But I was the little crippled child. I was the one in and out of the hospital, got to go to the hospital every time you turn around, got to go having surgery here, there, or whatever. However, I just figured, you know what? They have to love me. She had to love me to do all that, but I never heard it. And I actually started teaching my mom, I love you. So I started saying it, and she would say it back until she, and used to be, I would say it and then she would say it, and it was kind of uncomfortable because growing up, they didn't hear that either. And I guess it was generational or whatever. But then as we got older and I got older, I would say it to her and then she would say it back. And then she started telling me before I hung up the phone. So, you can teach people. So it's good to hear. So that's, they had to love me, but I didn't hear it. So, when the first Joker came around and said, I love you, that was music to my ears because it wasn't something I'd heard before. It was a foreign concept. So what about you, Dion?
This is so, you know what? This is like a evolving, revolving door with me, because I think everything that you all just said, I think it's not cultural. It's not environmental where we come from. It's not commonplace to be basking in the presence of love. And so when you hear it said, everybody needs it. Especially as women, we're wired for love, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Just to begin with the word, Ephesians chapter 5. Paul said, husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church.
Right.
And gave himself up for her.
Absolutely.
So that is a monumental type of love, is it not?
Yes.
But when you think about it, you know what I'm saying? It's like that's a statement. But what I'm grasping from that, and I've read books about it and things, and what I've come to understand is that we were made for love. We are receivers. We are incubators. Think about it. You give a woman a sperm, she don't give you sperm back. She give you a whole baby.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
You give her some groceries, she give you a meal.
Yeah.
She'll give you what you give to her.
That's right.
You give her a house, she gives you a home.
Mm-hmm.
we're multipliers and creators, but we do all those things when we have that main ingredient, which is love.
That's right.
And when we don't have it, we're acting out and we're seeking it some kind of way, shape, form, or fashion. So I think everything that you guys said, I mean, but it's understanding that's just the way it was supposed to be.
Right.
You know, it's not like we're creating something like, oh, you got to show me some love. You know, it's like, you know, you hear the saying, Shanita, excuse me, you were just saying how your grandmama said, do you want a man to do this? You want a man to give it all to you, right? But God made the man for his glory and God made the woman for the man's glory, right? So we're here, we're put here to shine in the man's glory, but we need that money to do all that. We need the moolah, we need that check to make sure we're shining, right?
Right.
But more so than that, we also need your loving, your care, your affection. We need all that.
And that was the design. It was the design. It was God's design. And what's happening now is that we are operating outside of the design. You know, we all have a lane. We all have a lane. I can't drive in your lane. You can't drive in my lane. And we're all operating. Most people are operating outside of God's lane. And so you get what you got. We have a whole world that's in turmoil. And so we can't do anything about the world. I tell people all the time, I can't do anything about what's going on over in Cleveland, Ohio. I can't do anything about what's going on in California. I can't even do anything about what's going on in Macon, Georgia. I have to take care of home first. And that's where it starts. And as I start there, then, each one reach one. Well, we all have a difference to make, but where do we start? And so in our families, even though we're cousins connected by blood, and I'm the middle child with always the middle child. I'm the middle child that's connecting us. We've still experienced so much of the same things within our extended families, our families and our extended families. So, and what the fallout is too, we are all still growing. The three of us are growing and learning from the fallout of what happened outside of love. You know, it was good at first. You know, it says good while it lasts. And then what happens? What happens? There was the fallout. You know, I remember my mom, before she died, I remember going over to her house. And so we're gonna with this podcast, guys, we're gonna talk about a lot of things. We're gonna share some things. We're gonna share some personal things. We're gonna share some fun things. We're just gonna share, and we're gonna move as the Spirit moves us. Okay, so we'll move as we'll move as we're led to move. And so we're going to share, and we're going to invite you to share. Ask us questions, reach out to us, connect with us. If you have questions, or if there's something that you want to hear us talk about on the show, send us a message, and we can do that. Okay. Now, I remember before my mom died. So my mom was an alcoholic, and you guys already know that. I loved her. I don't judge her, but it was difficult. And so I wish I knew then, before she died, what I know now. Then maybe my thoughts and my feelings would have been different. I judged her a lot because I didn't understand it. But now that I do, I understand. But I can't do anything with my mom now. But I can take what I've learned and impart the knowledge somewhere else where it can be best served. So I remember going over to visit her one day. And I already knew before I went that she was lit, because her speech was slurred on the phone. But I had to go over there, and she was in a condition. You hear me? She was in a condition. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced, your parents being in a condition, but she was in a condition, and it just broke my heart. And so here I am. I'm sitting there, and I'm just pouring my heart out, and I'm just saying, I don't like that. I wish you wouldn't, drink, and I wish, and it breaks my heart and it hurts me. And I may have gone on, and it's kind of comical now. It's not funny. It wasn't funny then. It was heartbreaking. But now, as I think about it, and I've thought about it multiple times since. I was sitting in the chair next to her bed, and she was totally inebriated. Okay, she was lit. And I was saying, oh, I don't like when you do that. It breaks my heart, and I'm just pouring my heart out. And she's in her statement. She's like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna quit, and I'm not gonna do it no more. And I realized that here I am trying to have a sober conversation with a drunk man. And she wasn't gonna remember anything that I said, nothing that I said. And so I left. But I was just heartbroken and I was hurt. And so it was all about me. There was a root cause to why she was in that condition. And I've since learned a lot, about the disease of addiction. But there was a reason why she was in that state. But it affected me. And I was like, I'm not going back over there. I'm not going to talk to her. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And at the time I was going to a different church congregation, different church. I was in denominational church. And the preacher said, why are you judging your mama? And I'm like, I'm not judging her. And I'm looking like, how dare you tell me I'm judging her? I'm the victim here. I'm the one sitting there looking at her, and she drinking, she drunk. What am I supposed? It's me. And he said, what you've done is you've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. And I did not understand at that time that you hate the sin and not the person. So I had to learn how to hate the sin and not the person. I didn't hate my mom, but I was ashamed. I was all of those emotions that I'm sure we've all had. I was, it was like, wow. So as I grow now, I wish I knew what I know now. I wish I knew it then, because I can't go back and have those conversations with her while she's sober and find out, what's going on, what the root cause is. I can't do that anymore. So, in What Happens Outside of Love, she experienced that drinking, that alcoholism was a part of her experiencing things that happened to her outside of love. And that was where she found the comfort. Unfortunately, it became addictive. And then the disease set in. And so it weakened her heart, and, she passed away. So, there are so many things that happen outside of love that we hold on to. And so hopefully with this podcast, with a Cousins production, and guess why it's called a Cousins production? Because we cousins. So hopefully we can say something, or, touch some hearts and cause the onset of some healing to start. So that's my purpose. And, you guys share what your why for this podcast, why it's necessary, and, what you hope to gain from it.
Well, I think first, my purpose is to have people to recognize what the problem is, because a lot of times we suffer because we don't acknowledge what the problem is. It doesn't matter who created the problem. We need to recognize first that there is a problem, and then we go from there. And we also need to know our boundaries. And it's like I tell people all the time. I know people get tired of hearing this same story. I end the conversation with most people the same conversation. It's not up to you, but you can make a difference. And you may have to cut some people off for a time, but don't cut them off in anger. Cut them off in your peace. And once you cut them off in your peace, give you some time to sit back, because few people that I know, they suffer from, like what we're talking about, love, and with the family. And at a certain point in your age, you need to know, okay, it's been that way. What am I going to do about it? I can't keep saying Jack went over there and slapped me 20 years ago, but I'm still mad at Jack 20 years later. Okay, Jack ain't slap you no more. So what are you going to do? Are you going to go address Jack? Jack, why did you slap me? Jack, you really hurt me when you slapped me. But, let's move forward. But don't slap me no more, Jack. But we don't do that. We sit and we just marinate in it. We just season ourselves. And we don't even know it. We teach ourselves hate. And the main thing is, like Diontrise said, you got to have the God on your side. If you ain't in that word, and I tell people, they get mad. I say, if you don't understand what God can do for you, because I know I done been through it, and I ask God every day, God, why you keep keeping me? Like, what did I do so good that you keep keeping me? Because if I treated people how they treated me, and I got some stories to tell.
Okay.
I'm gonna leave it right there.
Literally, I think we all have stories to tell, because again, this is what happens outside of love. But I was just trying to actually look up the scripture. I was hoping you spoke a little bit longer, Shanita, because I was going to look up John chapter 15, what he said, Jesus said, aside from me, you can't do anything. So the world that we are experiencing, for real, is sad, because everything is taking place outside of God, who is love. That's 1 John 4:8, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So everything that we're experiencing, the pain, the trauma, the mistreatment, all of these things are taking place outside of God, right? They're happening outside of his will, so to say. And I think what we're faced with, the dilemma, to your point, Shanita, identifying the problem is we got to get back home.
Right.
Where the heart is, but home is where God dwells, right?
Yes.
Because we all came from that. And I think everything that is happening outside of love, for sure, because it's happening outside of God. Like, we haven't acknowledged him. And I'm speaking specifically in family and family relationships. When you don't bring God into the mix, you don't consult him, trust in the Lord with all your heart and all your ways. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and all your ways.
On your own understanding. Yeah.
Lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he's going to direct your path. But I just think, as a family, and think about this, we start out relating inside of our families. So when we want to know why our relationships, marital relationships, business relationships, all of those relationships that we form in our adult life, they typically mirror what we had when we were growing up, right? To some extent.
Right.
Because we are who we are. And that's how we learn, that's how we've been domesticated to relate, right? This is what I know to do, so this is what I do. But you know what I'm saying? We're not getting to know. And I really do. I think the word of God is everything. Like he said, this is eternal life, that you may know me. But to know God is to know love. So we should know the boundaries. We should know a little bit about love. And most of us, sad to say, just don't. Because we're not trained. Even if we go to church, we're not trained in love. It's like driver school, right? I heard a pastor say one time, think about how in cultures, they make this big deal about driving. You got driver's education, a 16-week program or 8-week program to teach you how to drive. You go over the manual, the rules of the road. You go over all of that. Well, what is the manual on relationships?
Nobody want to pick up the book to read it.
Right, but also our culture don't acknowledge it, to say, okay, you want to train the child how to drive, well, train the child how to love.
And that's the problem. Is like, I'm gonna speak up because I don't want to say specifically. So an incident happened. It was a death, and I said, "You upset?" I said, "God don't make no mistakes, right?" And I said, "Do you know sometimes when things happen in your life, it's never a bad thing. God has this already worked out for you. What can you take from that?" And then a person came in and said, "Hey, stop talking about the past, because you're here. You know what went wrong. What can you do to change it?" And like you said, we don't live in the real world. We don't live in the real world. And like me, like LaQuita said, even with my mom, I knew my mom loved me. She never really told me she loved me, but I can tell you when she did tell me she loved me, that was the day before she died. But I knew by her actions she loved me, but she never really said. And when she did tell me she loved me, she said, you know, my mama never told me she loved me. Right? And my thing is, I have this dilemma with somebody in my family. I was like, listen, even if your family didn't show you, even if your environment was the worst environment you could possibly be in, did you ever cut on a TV? Did you ever pick up the Bible? Have you ever read a book? Have you ever looked outside and said, oh, I want that to be me? But a lot of times people see what they want to see because they so scared to step outside the box. And people tend to live for the now. They don't live in the spirit world. They just live in the human world. Nobody wants to, like, if you broke, you know you ain't gonna go to the bank and rob the bank to get no money. Most common sense people, let me rephrase that. Most people with common sense can't do that, right? So if you know in your brain, don't go to the bank and rob them because you ain't got that $50 you need. You're going to sit and figure out a way. Why can't we just sit and figure out a way with the Bible? Even if you don't have a Bible, just say, God, can you help me? And start looking at these. It's so many free resources that you can see love. Even if you just took the shape heart, you know that's love. We can say it's a shape, but we know it's love, right?
Mm-hmm.
We see happiness when we see Valentine's Day, even if we ain't got a Valentine to give us a gift. So we have the knowledge. We just choose not to use the knowledge, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's wrong with the world. And the world is moving so fast that if Jigga Jack just won $1 million, you want to win $2 million at the same time that Jigga Jack just got it.
Mm-hmm.
But if we took that knowledge and invested in ourselves, and it's like, how much do you love yourself? But because even though the Maslow's hierarchy talks about this stuff, right? I disagree with some things on there, but it's typically true. But I still kind of disagree with some things on there. But on one step, it talks about you have to give to others before you meet that self-satisfaction stage. But if you ain't got nothing to give, how you going to give something to somebody? That's the point that I disagree. So if you don't love yourself, if you don't know who Shanita is, how can Shanita go love Bob? And I think sometimes we just really need to sit back and just reevaluate some stuff. Like, we know love ain't gonna come overnight. If nobody told you you've been loved for 60 years, you saw love on the Huxtables, but you ain't never see love inside your house, but you know what love is. But it comes a time that you got to say, hey, I want to feel that love. I want somebody to just bring me a Tootsie Roll and we split it in half and we in love and we so happy. Why can't we do that? But here we are.
I think to add to what you're saying, though, I think a lot of times, culturally speaking, like I used to have this saying where, like, I was mentoring with teenage girls, and it just had dawned on me. I think it was a spirit that night. One night I was talking, and I was like, that's why as teenagers and young girls, we are searching for a lover, right? Mm-hmm. But not that the lover is coming, the love is emanating from within us. We're thinking it's supposed to take place from the outside. Mm-hmm. So as a teenager, we got all of these fantasies about love, and he gonna say this and he gonna do that, and like, I want him, he's just gonna rock my world. And at the end of the day, we're searching for that. I want my world to be rocked, right? But what we're missing is, like I said, we're not trained in it, right? So even when he comes, I'm not going to be ready to necessarily receive him based upon where I am and my understanding and how I am. And if I come from a home where love is chaotic, it's dramatic, I know my folks love me, they take care of me, they buy me some clothes, you know, they do stuff for me. But like you all both said, it's not practiced. The words are not expressed so freely where we come from. But however, we're looking for this lover to come along and do everything the people around us never did. He's just gonna fill me up. What that song is? He's all the man that I need. He fills me up. Who is that? Whitney Houston.
Whitney Houston.
He gives me love.
Love that I ever need. Oh, he's like, yeah.
And it's a fantasy. It's a fantasy.
Yes.
Because you don't even know, because you're asking for something. You're either asking for something that you don't know what you're asking for. You're it's a fantasy, so what you think it should be, or if you see it at home and it's opposite of what you feel like it should be, then you want opposite of that. You don't know what it is, and then when you receive it, whatever that it is, you don't know what it should be, and it just doesn't feel good. And so we get caught up in a feeling. It's a feeling. I feel this, I feel that. But then I have a friend that says all the time, don't be fooled by your feelings, or your feelings will have you feeling like a fool.
Right.
Because I never knew, my mom was never married. So I didn't know what it was like to have a father figure in the house. Mm-hmm. So when I got married within a fantasy of what I thought it should be, because my dad wasn't there. He wasn't there. So, and he says all the time, he can't take credit either way for how we turned out. Well, I don't like that, because it's kind of a cop out. So you gotta choose a spot. You either take credit for how I turned out and it wasn't good, or you take credit for how I turned out and it was good. Just don't take your hands off because you wasn't there.
You got some responsibility, physically or not. So
exactly. So you can't say that. So I never care for that. But as you grow, as I was growing and looking for a mate, it was a fantasy. And where did that fantasy come from? It was made up. Well, it wasn't necessarily made up. It was what I saw outside of what I never had. So it was what I saw on television, and it was just TV, or it was just the movies, or you saw a couple that you thought had it all going on, and you as a child you saw their home life, and you're like, okay, I want that. I want to feel that way. And so you look for that, and it's a fantasy. And then, as you grow, you raise your children like I did in opposite. I didn't like being yelled and screamed at. So I didn't want to yell and scream. I didn't want to yell and scream at my children. But recently one of my daughters said, you didn't yell and scream, but you gave us, you didn't talk to us. And I didn't like that. So you got one end of the spectrum to the other. Right. I didn't yell and scream, but I gave you the silent treatment, and I didn't like that. I would rather you had said something to me. Well, in my mind, I wasn't yelling and screaming, but I wasn't talking to you either. So, it's that's the perception. So at those times, she didn't feel that love for me. So what happens outside of love? All of this is looking for whatever it is that you think that we need. And because we didn't know at that time, we all know now, but at that time we didn't know God and what God's love was, and that God's love was the ultimate. And when you have God's love, that's all the love that you need, because he'll direct you in the paths that you should go. We didn't know that. We didn't have that. Mm-hmm. So in our families and our lives, and I know we're in the same families, and we talk about it all the time. Shanita and I and Dion and I, we talk about it all the time. He's like, I mean, good Lord, what in the world is going on? And so we're older now, and so the younger people, we're like, they lost their mind,
right?
Because they're bolder now. So it's like what happens outside of love. It's like it compiles and compiles and compiles, and the love is there. It's just buried somewhere.
Well, I think we're not practicing it, just like you practice driving. Why are we not practicing love? I don't understand. Like in any relationship, like, what the Bible say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. First of all, decide how you want somebody to do you. You want to be yelled at, you know what I'm saying? But first of all, in the love walk and the love practice, it should first be practiced, taught, and displayed within ourselves. Mm-hmm. That's the 2 commandments, right? To love. Okay, so God basically love the Lord God with your whole heart, your whole mind, and your whole soul, and then love your neighbor as you love yourself. Yes. So the first thing is first, as you focus in, make a decision that I want to love you, God, now I can figure out how to love myself, and then I can love my neighbor with the love I have for myself. But that's just not commonplace in our families. I mean, ain't nobody never taught me about no commandments. They was like, girl, put on that dress and go to church.
Going to church. That's right.
Yeah, just go. You ain't even getting a lesson. You ain't even getting a lesson. You just going for attendance.
You just best not miss Sunday school. You know what I'm saying? You better not miss Sunday school.
Make sure you on the bus now. Sign my name on the roll. Here I am, right here. And then the pastor be like, what you learned in Sunday school? And I'm leaving over, like, asking my other cousins, what I learned today.
Nothing. You know, she remember my mama said that. My mama always said, I didn't really force y'all to go to church because I went to church and church didn't teach me nothing, but I do love the Lord. And it took my mom maybe I knew she was a Christian, let me just say, but it took her probably the last 5 years before she deceased that she really understood the purpose of not just attending church, the love that you have to have for God himself.
And the relationship.
Exactly. Inside of love. That's what's inside of love. That relationship. Right. And when you grow it and you go to it and you find it, it's like, okay, I didn't teach me this, but this is some good stuff here.
And you'll learn.
It's relating. And I promise you guys, it's so in my last, since I've been divorced, that's what it's been about. Because the Bible says the thief comes to kill, to steal, and to destroy. When divorce, you see the thievery. You see how you just don't hijack my life and all the effort and energy I don't put into this love walk, and you come and just snatch it away, right? But what I've learned is the relationship is pivotal. That's who God is. He's just a master relator. He loves to relate. For God so loved the world
that he gave.
Relationship. And so church, everything has been outside of the relationship. Like this is a cousin production. This is relationship.
It's relationship.
It's relationship.
It's relationship.
That's who God is. That's the family. It's relationship.
Right. And you know what? And it has to come full circle, because in order for it to do that, there has to be an understanding of each other. I wouldn't know any of that if we had not started with the conversation. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't have known it. Dion and I in the same family, and we didn't grow up together. We didn't grow up, Shanita. We didn't grow up together. I was at a party last year, 2 years ago. I was at a party, and I'm on one side of the room of this ballroom, one side of the room, and I look over and see Dion on the other side. And I'm like, you know what? I believe I know her. I think we related because I'd seen her at some events that I've been at, and they were family events. So I could have just saw her across the room and let her go on out the door. But I was like, no, let me go over here. I'm going over here and see. And when I walked over, I was like, I think we're related. Before I could even say that, she said, we have to be related because you have my grandmother's mouth. And I started laughing, and I was like, well, it was your grandmama's name, Adela? And she said, yes. I said, my grandmama was Estella. They were sisters. And like, we cousins. And it started with a conversation. And then we could have said, okay, you know what? Hey, we cousins. Nice to see you. And then going on about our business. But I think we both made a point to want to get to know each other. So we had lunch one day. We went and had lunch one day, and we just sat and talked. And we've just been talking ever since, getting to know each other, because it's relationship, and we're cousins, but there's so much in common that we have. And then Shanita and I, the same thing. We met through her dad, which is my cousin that I knew. I remember Shanita vaguely when she was younger, especially that picture with you with the little pigtails. I remember you as that little girl, but we didn't know each other. We didn't grow up. And then when her dad did the book and I met her, and we just hit it off just like that. And I'll never forget you and I talking about you writing your story, and you were like, you know, I don't want to write my story because I know you and my dad are close, and I don't want to offend you. And I was like, girl, write your story. It's not going to offend me. That's because I understand. Write your story. And, you know, and then we just hit it off, and we're family. We're family. And it's amazing that we have some of all three of us, some of the same experiences. And as I'm sitting here right now, and this is not a bashing production. This is a cousin production, real, raw, and honest. That's who we are. That's what we do. But as I'm sitting here looking at all our faces, and I'm like, okay, you know what? We all have some daddy issues, because outside of love, it's what happens, because for whatever reasons, they didn't show up when they should have been showing up. And there's responsibility for that, because our lives went certain directions because of that. So we still, like you said, Shanita, we're adults. And so we get to choose now. But at the time when somebody else should have been doing the choosing for us, they were not there.
And we end up choosing the ones that mimic our fathers. And we chose the wrong ones because we was looking for our fathers. You know, not to cut you off, but just sitting here hearing you say that. Honestly, my daddy is dark skinned. You couldn't tell me you had to be dark skinned, and when I got older, you had to be gray. You had to be looking like my daddy. I remember my ex was a little older than my daddy, but I was like, you got to be dark skinned. Like I knew why, because I wanted that father figure, and I was okay. That to give me a little tangent with my father. So we. Not saying, y'all know people like, oh, what the Bible say divorce. Okay, but read on in the Bible what the Bible also say when it comes to when you have to get a divorce first before anybody judge us with this conversation. But typically women who are missing their father, they tend to grasp the first thing that come in their presence or something close to it that mimics what they're missing. And that's how when I had my daughter, I got pregnant at 14. Her daddy, spitting image almost of my daddy, dark skin, like yeah. And my thing is, I chose to have a baby because I was missing something. And so we both agreed one day, hey, we're gonna have a baby so we can give a life that we never had. Did we do that? No, but it's honest. Like, I know as a teen why I got pregnant, you know, because I was missing that key ingredient, love. That I was missing from my father, because I was the only child that my daddy had. And I'm gonna use the word spoiled. In my head, I thought I was just spoiled with the little lavish little things, the Miss Winters and little Wendy's and Dunkin' Donuts. I thought my daddy was giving me the best life of the world, and like that's my best fond memories of him, right? But when he left, I end up saying, okay, where's my daddy? Oh, okay. So he gone, he left me. I'm gonna go get my own family. On top, I had other things going on in the home. That's how I became a teen parent, because of missing that father figure. Not saying it's my daddy's fault, because I still knew what I was doing, but I know the reasons behind why I did what I did.
You know, when I got married, and the same thing here, I was pregnant when I got married. And again, if I would have known what I know, if I would have known then what I know now, I knew nothing. I didn't have the closest father figures. And they wasn't really father figures. I had my uncles, and they were in the world doing their own things. So I didn't have a father figure. And, you know, I did what I figured. I got married when I was 19. Had my first child when I was 20, didn't know nothing. I was young, he was young, irresponsible. We just kind of trying to make it work, trying to do what we thought should be done. But then one person grew up and the other person didn't. And then, like you said, you know, read the whole scripture before you start judging. All these things unfolded, and then other people started coming into the relationship. And I remember when I got married, I was like, my marriage is gonna last forever. It's not gonna. It's to death do us part. I even thought, I'm gonna know. You know, we're so close that I'm gonna know if he cheat on me. I'm gonna know. I'm gonna be able to feel it. I'm gonna be able to tell. all these things were happening. And it was like, okay, at a point, I'm like, okay, I'm taking care of three, first is one kid, then two kids, then three kids. And it was hell. It was. It was. I'm walking on eggshells because I don't know what's going on. And then I go to, and I'm not, my dad is not a bad person, you know, and he knows he wasn't there. So if he hears this, he knows he wasn't there. But I'll never forget having to go through, going through the storms and needing him. And he was in town at that time, needing him and going to him. And he was at Auntie Jean's house before she died. He was at Auntie Jean's house. And I went over and I'm just pouring my heart out to him, and I needed help. And his response was, make sure I save up 6 months worth of income before I decide to make a move. That's the best you can do. Yeah, I never forgot that. So I knew then that I was on my own, and so I had to stick it out until things hit the fan, and the law had to come in, and all these other things had to happen. But it was hard. It was difficult, and I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel loved. I just didn't feel it. And so some people say, well, it's not about a feeling. I didn't hear it. I didn't feel it. Even my mom, when my kids and I had to relocate and we moved to an apartment and my mom was keeping the children, I went over and I was like, I begged her to let me stay. Can you let me stay? Let me spend the night. And she was like, you better go where you just paid all that money to move. So I knew then that I was in this thing by myself. It was just me. I was on my own.
That is that is something culturally, because I think we all can attest to what you just said, Dr. LaQuita, about the absence of the support. I don't know. I'm feeling that it's commonplace, even though we kind of we are part of the same families on some end. But how does that work? Like I that part right there, I battled and wrestled with that for so long. Like, to have your parents, you know what I'm saying? Because I want to say two things. First, I want to go back to you, Shanita. You guys hear me? It was paused. Okay, it looked like it had froze. But I want to go back when you were talking about choosing a man like your father. I wanted to speak to that. And especially when you come up through the ranks without a father, or if you have any relationship. Like I had a relationship with my dad, great relationship, I thought, up until I was 10, and he started using drugs. When I became aware of his drug use, everything to me just got shattered. And then I always looked for a father. But what I've come to realize, and it was to your point, that's what God wanted us to be. God wanted the husband to father his wife, to take care of her, to give himself up, that sacrificial love that a father would. So even in a healthy relationship, the dad is going to teach the daughter, if he is present, if he is responsible and accountable to his daughter, he's going to typically choose a man like himself for her. Even if he's the one that has to do the choosing. But even though that's not what's happening with us, but so it's still the same though. We want somebody to operate in that capacity. That if we have any kind of semblance of a father, even if we know him, if he's not very present, semi-present, you still want that man to come in and be your father. And I have just reached the understanding. I've been reading books about it because I've been wanting to know. And that is that's God's design. We should want a man to father us, which is husbands, leave your wives. I mean, a man should leave his mother and his father and cleave to his wife.
Right.
But the woman, it doesn't say that about the woman, because literally the father is handing her over at the wedding, right? He's giving her away. Like, hey, you better take care of her like I take care of her.
Right. You got fathers who will say that, hey, you know what? If you're not going to take care of her, you need to take care of her. Are you able to take care of her? This is what she needs, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's natural. So when you were saying
Mhm.
that, that is the way it was supposed to be. Whether they're good
Mhm.
or bad, we are naturally inclined to a man that should act and
Mhm.
be as our father. So
Mhm.
that's God's design. Number one.
Mhm.
Number two, when LaQuita, when you was just talking, you was talking about how the dads are absent, and they're telling us things, and then you realize, especially when you have kids, that's when it becomes very apparent, and you need some help or some support of some sort. Because when it's just you, like, I'm gonna get it how I get it. Like, I've always believed in working and doing that.
Yeah.
But when you have kids, this is a little bit too much. This is just not about me. It's about the extension of
Mhm.
myself, and
Mhm.
even the extension of our parents' posterity. And for me to have to see how they could just leave you out in the cold sometime, like you was just saying, like, did you really just say what I thought you said when
Yeah.
I asked you
Mhm.
for some help? And this is what you said.
And it sticks.
But
It sticks. You move on and you figure it out. And I did. And I'm here. And this is 20 something years later. But it's still you still like, really? That's the
yeah,
best you
like,
had?
but I'm that one. I'm be like, do you remember? That's me. I'm like, wait a minute. You know what I'm
Nobody
saying?
wants to be
Because
Little House on the Prairie. They don't. They don't.
yeah, like, but I think it's really understanding, and here's what I'll say to generations prior to us. I think they wanted it at the end of their journey of life, but it's like, why y'all weren't interested in finding out the right way? What does the Keith Sweat song say? It's a right and a wrong way to love somebody.
Right. Right.
And I'm like,
It's like a cycle. It's like a cycle. They didn't get it, and then they didn't get it. At some point, somebody has to say, "Okay, enough already. Let me do the work." And that's the thing. And I think that's what we're doing, and that's what we've done in our lives because we've recognized what was and what wasn't. And so now, all of these years later, we're all, in our 50s or heading to 50. We are trying to do the work because there are still generations behind us, and there are generations in our family who they can learn differently. They can learn to do things differently. It doesn't have to be because it's always been. And I think you said it, Dion. It's kind of generational. This is the way it's always been done. This is the way, it's been parented. This is the way. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. I admire, there are some things about my children, how they raise their children, that I admire. And there are some I think, okay, I'm still old school. And that's a part, but I'm not so old school where I can't see, okay, I can see where that would be better, that will affect better than the way I came up. But at the same time, society is different. But even with all that, the foundation never changes. God is the
Not
foundation.
at all.
And
Not at all.
until that is grasped, it's still going to be helter skelter all over the place. So all of that is still happening without love. So our part is, okay, so this is happening outside of love. Then how do we change these behaviors? How do we maneuver so that what's happening out of love will not continue to break hearts and sever relationships and destroy homes, you know?
but I think I like what you just said, but I think to a certain degree, we my pastor used to always say play in church, but I think a lot of us play family.
Yeah, yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Talk about Little House on the Player. You're right. Playing family. We play church. We play family.
We
You know,
play.
we playing. It's
You're
playing. And when we're
playing,
gonna get
cause
serious? Exactly.
but
Exactly.
here's the thing, right? My aunt had this is my mom's sister. On Friday, she had her daughter threw her a retirement party because she did 38 years at the IRS. So I
All
guess
right.
with the thing, she came home. And it was kind of whatever. It was some things. It's just how we relate as families. Like, it was some things in the air leading up to the party, right? And so I'm just being honest. I was contemplating not going, really, because I was like, here go family, right? But what I noticed when I got there, I decided that I do, because what I come to realize recently, we're all one. You know, you think about it, how mother has 7 or 8 kids. My grandmother had 7 kids. But this one lady has the 7 or the 8 kids, right? They're all an extension of her. Mm-hmm. So we're all of it. Ultimately, we're all an extension of God, right? So we're really all one. What affects you affects me.
That's right.
But I didn't grow up thinking that. I'm guilty too. Guilty as charged. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, that's your thing. But to celebrate her would be to celebrate me. Mm-hmm. To be happy for her would be being happy for me. Mm-hmm. And so when I went and I said that to her, I got up and I said something. And that's what I said to my aunt. You know what I'm saying? Because I have words with my family. I've always been vocal. I'm going to let you know exactly how I'm feeling. However I'm feeling, I'm going to tell you at some point. And you know what I'm saying? That's not typically what I wanted to say, but I was like, I celebrate you today. Because I know at the end of the day, that's what love is, and that's what love requires me to do. Mm-hmm. I might have differences with you on some level. I might not agree with everything you say, but I celebrate you. I do. And I love you. And I think when you could get to that place of just acceptance, because we're all an extension of God, and you might not have, your lipstick might not be the lipstick I want you to have on, I think you should have on today. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right? Or your hair, your clothes, or whatever. Like, you know,
all that.
We come from all that. We be like, I know she did show up looking like that today. Girl, stop. Yeah. But it boils down to when we get to the place when we understand the Creator himself and how God loves everyone, and that we should, especially inside the family unit, we should embrace, because we're only as strong as the weakest one of us.
Yes.
And absolutely. That's what I think is absolutely missing from the family structure. And I am hopeful and prayerful that we can get this word out, and so this healing and this restoration can begin to take place, because that's what I think is needed inside of love, when we accept each other and bring everybody back into the circle of love, which is the circle of God, literally.
Well, you know what, Diontrise, you just said the word. That's the word, girl. And as we get ready to close this session out, this is our debut of what happens outside of love. This is a Cousins production. And this was good. It starts with a conversation. This is simply a conversation. So we are, I love y'all.
I love you all too.
Love y'all. Listen, I love, these are look, my favorite cousins. Okay. They didn't know it yet, but hey, I talk to these more than I talk to any other cousins that I have. Honestly, for real. For real, we have a lot of cousins, but you two are the ones that I talk to all the time. So I'm grateful for both of you. So listen, this is not my show. This is not Shanita's show. This is not Dion's show. This is our podcast, and we just wanting to shed some light of some things that happens outside of love. So, Shanita, you want to give a word before we close out to our next time? This has been good, y'all. This has been a great conversation.
I just say, let's start working on love. If you don't know what love is, go straight to the Bible and find it. You know, and if you look, just pray. Do what I do sometimes. If you don't want to can't find the scripture you're looking for, just ask God. I promise you, when you open up that Bible, it's going to go exactly what God wants you to read. Yeah. So that's how we can start the healing process. That's my go-to.
All right. I love it. You know, there's a song. What's love got to do with it? What's love? Love has everything to do with it.
Exactly.
Every single thing to do with it. And when it doesn't, all things happen outside of love. So, guys, Dion, you got a word before we say goodbye to these good people?
Yeah, you know, I always got something to say. I don't know, but yeah, I just want to say, I don't know that this amount, you will have to wire it shut. But no, I really want to say again, I love you guys, and I'm so thankful and grateful that we were able to go ahead and bring this to the forefront.
Yes,
Put it
yes,
out here in the air.
Yes.
And I like
Yes.
exactly what you said. We have not because we ask not, you know? And I
Yes.
don't think we're asking the right questions and having the right conversations. And based on the way we were raised, I don't think we're desiring the right things. But it's like Dr. LaQuita just said, it's the conversations, right, that we need to have. But what happens outside of love, here's what I'm going to say to that. You just said it. What happens outside of love is happening. That is the pain that we experience. That is the trauma we experience. That is everything that is not right that we experience because it's taking place on the outside of love. So the goal that I want to say, let us find our way back home inside to this circle of love. And it's like you said, Shanita, to reach out to God, who is love, because that is his ultimate desire. And that's his ultimate design, that we would carry on inside a place of love. So that is my prayer and mission for the mission of this journey that we're to take.
Absolutely. I love it. And so until next time, join us again for more conversations of what happens outside of love. Here I am. This is a Cousins production, but I would be remiss if I didn't say it has been a plump, pleasing pleasure, better than a triple-decker peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's our story. We sticking to it. So until the next conversation, this has been what, y'all? What happens outside of love? A Cousins production.
And what
What happens outside of love? All right. Hang tight.
What I wish I knew at 15 instead of 25? That healing isn't a solo trip, it's a family journey. Welcome to What Happens Outside of Love, a space where the masks come off, the truth gets told, and healing begins. I'm Dr. LaQuita, and I'm joined by my cousins Diontrise and Shanita. Together, we dive deep into those moments, memories, and mindsets shaped in the absence of love, and how we're finding our way back to it. This isn't just a podcast. This is a Cousins production, a raw, real, and reflective journey where family, faith, pain, and progress meet. Whether you're navigating trauma, rebuilding trust, or redefining what love looks like in your life, we see you, and we're walking this journey with you. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's talk about what happens outside of love, because healing starts with the conversation. Ready to join us? Let's get started.
All right.